Hey there. I get asked from time to time, why would I, as an investor, not me, but you, invest with Fortress Federation, a co-sponsor or a co-general partner, as opposed to investing directly with the lead sponsor or lead operator? And, there's no right or wrong. There's pros and cons to both, but I'm going to share some of the advantages of investing with a co-sponsor or a co-general partner or maybe a fund manager, as opposed to investing directly with the operator. And they have their own set of advantages, but here are mine. So why would you invest with Fortress Federation? So backing up, our model is we align with what we consider to be the very best operators in the most fundamentally sound markets. And what's pretty cool about that is each of these operators are experts in their own backyard. And that's where they stay, that's where they focus, so that's where their expertise lies. What's cool for us is we can invest in their market, but we can also invest in our other markets where we also have expert operators in. So right now we sort of focus on three different sets of boots on the ground. I have long-standing relationships with those partners, and they happen to be in Arizona and in Texas, and then mainly in Florida, although we're always looking around the Southeast, like the Carolinas and whatnot. So we're able to kind of expand our reach and broaden our horizons and tap into their expertise in their specific markets. So that's one advantage of it. But probably the biggest advantage is we provide a second, almost third set of eyes when it comes to doing due diligence on a property. So to give you an idea of what we go through when a potential deal comes our way, sometimes I find the deal through just broker relationships that I have, but more often than not, they're coming to me with an opportunity, and they'll hand over their data room, and it's a folder full of underwriting, normally 3 years financials, T12, rent roll. I know some of this is probably Greek to some of you, but this is important stuff. This is just sort of the data that's specific to that property. And then we also get market data from Yardi Matrix or CoStar, and they provide certain demographic data, sales trends, rent growth trends, comp analysis, which is really important, although we do our own as well, sales comps and rental comps. It goes on and on. So we go over all that, we filter all that, and analyze their underwriting, their model, see how that checks out, and then I'll input the numbers into my own model. And if I see an assumption that seems a little aggressive, maybe I'll tweak mine, or maybe they've been a little bit too conservative. So it's a good way to sort of cross reference. I also do pretty deep submarket analysis, just starting out with the straightforward stuff like, is there crime in the area? What's the surrounding median income? Is it too low? Are they not going to be able to afford improvements in terms of renovations that are going to increase their rents? It may not be possible. But then once I get done with my analysis, if it is on target and it's looking good and it's comparing to theirs, within a few percentage points or so, then I pass it to my lead analyst, who has 30 years commercial underwriting experience. He's been in the banking industry for years, so he's a wealth of knowledge. He's a much better and much more efficient underwriter than most people, really. And I'm lucky to have him. So he'll go through things. And, if there's differences of opinions, we'll have a conversation. We have a deep debate on, what some of the inputs are, what some of the assumptions are, look at the outputs. And if everything checks out, then it's time to fly to the market and check out the asset itself, and then hopefully bring that deal out to you, the investor. But you may have noticed this year's been very slow, and that's just because I just kind of feel like I've seen some okay deals, but okay isn't good enough if there's a certain amount of risk, like if there's high occupancy in the area and it's going to take a while to rebound from that. It's a good time in that pricing is down, but still, sellers who aren't being constrained by the debt, in other words, they don't have, their loan coming due. They can just sit on it until times improve. They're just sitting there and they're not willing to sell at a lower price. Why would they? And then you have other sellers who think that you should be paying for the future value that you're going to add, giving that value to them, which doesn't really make much sense. So, we're checking out current rents as opposed to our pro forma rents. We don't want to pay them for our pro forma rents. We want to pay them for their current rents. So those are the two biggest things. And then another one is, actually this is another big one, just being represented, having an extra layer of representation. And I'll give you an example. I got into this private equity deal, kind of risky looking back, very risky. It was outside of real estate. And it turns out that the lead operator turned out to be a bad actor. Very unfortunate. He's not dealing, I don't know if he's overwhelmed or if he intended to always be fraudulent, but he is defrauding investors. And he's just sort of disappeared off the map. Now, I invested directly with that operator. So he's my source of, he's my lifeline. Whereas other investors invested with co-GPs, and those co-general partners have banded together and formed a lawsuit. So their investors were represented. So again, it's just an extra layer of protection and really just kind of covering your back. And then on a personal basis, I go to bat for my investors on a deal in certain situations. I've had situations where people felt they deserved a better split. Now, I don't want y'all asking me individually for a better split, but this investor was investing quite a bit of money, and that's just one example. Sometimes it's just better terms and just sort of just refining the deal, getting something that's just a little bit different. These aren't people that were, hey, treat me better than everybody else. They had a good reason, so I felt they had to it was justifiable. And, I speak and negotiate with the lead team in those circumstances. And then the last thing is I like talking directly with investors. I want to hear what's going on in their life, what's not functioning. I like to get to know people first and just kind of hear, what kind of people they are. And then also, why have they reached out? There has to be a reason. Maybe, they're making good money, but their nest egg isn't as large as one would think. So what's going wrong there? Maybe they're investing in the wrong type of assets. Maybe they're heavily invested in the stock market and they have no real estate. The list goes on and on. Why people are maybe struggling or just concerned or feel worried that they're not on pace to get their nest egg in a place where they'll feel comfortable retiring. But I like having those one-on-one conversations, whereas I think with a lot of the lead operators, they'll pass you off to like a specific investor relation person who, knows the broad scope of the deal and obviously the company philosophy and all that. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty and the specifics of the underwriting and the real nuances of the deal, something specific about the private placement memorandum or the operating agreement, sometimes they're just going to say, let me get back to you. And that happens to me too. Maybe there's something specific with asset management that I don't know. Okay, I'm not going to BS my way through that. I'm going to say, hey, I don't know the answer to that. I'll get back to you on that one. But for the most part, I sit in on those asset management meetings. Like I say, I go through a deep analysis of the deal prior to even getting into it. So I know the deal very well. And I'm not passing it on to my assistant to let her handle what I think is a very important job. So I hope you got something out of that. Those are some of the advantages. And like I say, I'm not discounting what my partners offer as lead operators because they're great in their own right and they have their own set of advantages. But those are some things that maybe people don't consider when investing with a third party like Fortress Federation Investments. So Thanks for taking the time. I hope you got something out of that, and we will see you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.